We've spent some time recently talking about file servers, and I've talked about my opinion of Nextcloud, and some of you agreed with me, and some of you had your own thoughts on the matter, especially when I brought up ownCloud. So as I continued looking for other file server options, I ran across something called copyparty. And copyparty is something different compared to what we've talked about in the past, because sometimes you don't need something like Nextcloud or ownCloud or cfile. Sometimes you just need something quick and easy to share some files, and that is where copyparty comes in. Copyparty is a single Python file that can turn just about any device into a file server in about 30 seconds. And today we're going to run it in Docker because why not? We'll take a look at what it can do, and then we'll take a look at how easy it is to get set up in Docker. So a bit of information about copyparty is that it is an open source file server written entirely in Python. It supports WebDAV, SFTP, FTP, TFTP, ZeroConf, and has a built-in web interface with a media player, thumbnail generation, and file sharing. And again, it will run on just about anything. And what's great about it is that it's very lightweight and you can have it up and running in just a few seconds. Now, I want to talk about something before we jump into the demo, and that's the interface, because in my opinion, it's a little rough around the edges. The aesthetics are definitely a choice, and the developer clearly prioritized features over polish, and the UI reflects that. So if you're looking for something with a polished aesthetic like Nextcloud or ownCloud or something like that, this might not be what you're after. But if you need a capable little file server for local network use without setting up something heavy, definitely keep watching. So with that little intro out of the way, let's jump over to my desktop and take a look at the interface. So here we are not logged in. We can see that right up here at the top. My password manager is prompting us to log in, but as a guest, with the way this instance is set up, we can view images and shared. It says you can browse those two categories, and you can also upload to shared. Again, we've got guest set up to do that with this demo instance. We're not going to do that, but again, if we click on images, hey, look, we can see some images that I've uploaded. And if I click over to the grid down here in the bottom, we'll cover that later, we can actually get thumbnails of what those look like. And then we can use our keyboard and our mouse or whatever to click through and view whatever happens to be in this shared folder. We can also go over here to shared. Again, there's nothing here, but even as a guest, because of the way this is configured, if I wanted to, I could come over and grab a picture and drag it over there and say, yeah, I want to do that. And now as a guest, I've uploaded an image. So just wanted to share that real quick before we get in here. Let's go back to our main login page. And again, that gives us what we can view and what we can upload to. And of course, now we want to actually get logged in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. It says, hi, admin, continue. And here we are on our admin panel. So as I mentioned earlier, the aesthetic here with this interface is not something that I'm a huge fan of, but I think the software actually speaks for itself and I can kind of let it slide a little bit. But basically across the top, we've got some information about our server. As we can see the permissions that we have across the top as admin. Below that is where all of our navigation happens. And all of these icons, again, not really my aesthetic, but it is what it is. So basically the first one here will let us close a submenu if there's a submenu open. We can also see here that each of the icons has a little pop-up that tells us what that icon is for, where we can close the submenu, we can search, we can unpost something that we recently uploaded. We can do an up 2K file uploads. So there's that where you can kind of do parallel uploads, and we can switch what kind of performance we expect out of our server, whether it's a good server, maybe a slower server. We want to randomize file names. Do we want to overwrite existing files or overwrite if the server file is older? Like there's different options we can toggle through here as well. Or we can don't actually upload, just check to see if the file is already there. The next icon across here is a basic uploader. So maybe you just want to click on, choose your files and go through your Explorer window that way to find the files that you're looking for. Otherwise, again, you can just drag a file over and upload it that way. Our next icon here is make a new directory. We can create a new text file. We can send a message to the server log if we needed to do that for some reason. We've got media player options here. There's a ton of stuff to go through on that, but we're not going to. I want to just give a high-level overview of kind of how some of this works. And then, of course, you've got configuration options, where, again, there's a ton of features in here that I encourage you to install this software and take a look through all of the different options here. And again, we can come back to the two little dashes at the beginning and close that and come back to our homepage area here. Below that, we can see we can hide or show breadcrumbs. We can do breadcrumbs or a Christmas tree. As far as our navigation over here is concerned, we can make our left column here wider or narrower to show or hide different things. We can scroll to a selected folder. What else do we have over here? We can toggle the folder tree or text files. We can show parent folders in a docked pane at the top, or we can auto grow as the tree expands. And then below that, let's bring this down a little bit. Below that, we can see our folder structure here on the left, as well as over here on the right. We can obviously toggle through these and we can view the things that are in there. I'm going to make sure my audio is turned down. But like on documents, we can pop open a PDF here and then go back, or we can open this PDF and go back. We've got images. Again, we looked at images and we can toggle through there with our mouse and or keyboard, however we want to do that, and close the window. We've got music in here. So if maybe you wanted to listen to music for some reason via this, you could absolutely do that and just click play. And there is some music playing that I'm going to stop before I get a copyright. We've got a shared folder again. This is the one that we uploaded when we weren't even logged in. And then there's video, and we can see some copyrighted stuff that I've got license for. So this is okay. And we can actually scroll through here with our keyboard as well, and then hit escape to exit. Now, one last thing I want to take a quick look at is actually in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen here, where we've got the option to share, copy, zip, or toggle the list or grid view, or view the media player. And those all do exactly what you would expect them to do. You could select a folder and then click share, and it would share this video folder. There's also an option if you needed to. Let's actually abort that. We can do like a multi-select, and then we could click some of these and then share those files directly. From here, we can give it a random name across the top. We can just call this videos. Video share, we'll just call it that. And then we can click on create the share, and then we get a URL. Of course, we would only want to make this local. I would never put this on the internet. And you can give somebody this QR code to download these files on your local setup. And I kind of dig that as well. Let's see, let's undo the multi-select. Let's go back to our root directory here. Again, we can copy, we can zip things up. So if we had an image folder that we wanted to zip, we could do that and download that. It just downloaded it instantly without storing any extra files on the server. So I love that. And then again, we can toggle the view from list to grid and back and forth, or we can view our media player down there in the bottom right-hand corner. So quite a bit of features in this setup, and there's no way we could cover them all in a single video because there's so many things in the documentation that make it nearly impossible to cover in a single video. And I'm really only explaining this to this degree so that my B-roll can have enough chance to show exactly how long the Docker repository is with all of the documentation. So that's why we're not going to go through this in a huge amount of detail, because there's so much that I could cover in this, and I don't want to waste your time any more than I have with this long explanation right here. So with that said, I think that kind of covers what this will do at a very high level. So now let's take a look at how easy it is to get installed. Now, before we jump into how to install copyparty via Docker, I wanted to mention that I just released a video on Patreon showing how I build a portable file server with a Raspberry Pi that acts as a wireless access point and a file server all in one. If you want to check that out, Patreon memberships are just $1 a month or $10 a year, unless you want to pay more. So with that out of the way, let's jump into how to install copyparty via Docker. So to install copyparty via Docker, we're going to create two files. And of course, the first one is our Docker compose file. So what I'm going to do is nano, we're just going to say compose.yaml. And we're just going to paste this in, and we're going to walk through this real quick. This is part of the official Docker Compose from the GitHub repository. I've just trimmed it down a little bit. Our first line, of course, always is going to be services. The service name is going to be copy party. Copy party /AC with the latest tag is how they have it set up in their Docker Compose. You should probably pin this just for security purposes. The container name is copy party. And they had this user line in here of 1000, 1000. I ran into issues with that, so I've commented that out, and it's resolved all of the issues I was having with permissions. Below that, we've got some ports. I'm going to change this to 4500 just as a random, just because. And our volumes, we're going to map a config in the local folder. And then we're also going to have a place where we can have our shared files or our file structure here. So I'm just going to call this shared files. And that's going to map to Z and W in there, or sorry, config or CFG and W in there respectively. I'm not sure where they got W from, but a lot of this project doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So we're just going to run with it as it is. Basically, that's all you need for the Docker Compose. So we can do a Control O and Enter and X to save and exit that file. Now, the next thing we need is a configuration file called copyparty.conf. So we're going to do nano copyparty.conf like so. Now, this file is a bit more involved, and we're going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it in, and we're going to talk about it. Oops. We're going to scroll all the way back up to the top. Now, this has got a bunch of different options in here, and I've got each one of these labeled as far as what they do. Like this E2DSA indexes all the files on the startup for search purposes. E2TS is an index media tags. You can kind of read through these as we go. The history keeps the database files in the config folder. SHR enables shareable links, and you can turn these off and on by either adding or removing these lines from your instance. It's really this easy to add or remove functionality from your copy party instance by adding these different things. Again, all of this will be linked in the video description. We've got Z for ZeroConf. I've never had any luck with this. Maybe you'll have better luck than I did. QR for QR codes, obviously. And dedupe for skipping writing duplicate files. Love that that's in there by default as well. Now, the next section that we're going to see here is called accounts. And basically, it's just that. It's the accounts that you want to have access to your instance. I've got an admin account and a guest account, but you can create additional accounts if you want. The thing to know about this is you're not going to use a username and password combination to log in. You're only going to have passwords to log in with. The username is just kind of a reference, so you know who is logging in with that password. So you can create additional user accounts in here, but just make sure that each account has a different password. Otherwise, they're all going to share the same permissions. So that's something to think about. Next, it isn't labeled, but we've got our shared folders. The first one is our root directory. This one's very standard. Next, we've got a video share with the name, which is video, and then the location, which is /w/video. And the accounts that can access it is admin. They do permissions and then the username. So there is that part of it, I guess you would need to tell the application who gets access to what. That's where the username comes in. So we've got our permissions and then our user. Next, we're going to scroll down a little bit more. We've got images again with the name and the location. The accounts, this is admin with these permissions and everybody with read permissions. Music is kind of the same thing, but only admin has access to music here. Same thing with documents. And then with shared, everybody can read and write, but of course, admin gets further permissions than that. So that's how we can build out different shared folders automatically and set permissions on them based on the username and the accessibility we want each user to have for each different share. So now that we've got our copyparty.conf file built the way we want it to, we're going to do Control O and Enter and Control X to exit. Of course, if you're using a different editor, it won't apply to you that way. You can exit and save the way you need to for your setup. I'm going to clear my screen again, and what I want to do is do an LS so that we can see that there are only 2 files in this directory. That's going to change here in just a moment when we do docker compose up -d. Oops, I've already got a copy party instance running on here. So I actually need to change the name of this to tutorial, right? And then we can do this again. There we go. So let's clear our screen and do an ls. And here we can see that we've got a couple of additional directories that we didn't have a moment ago. So now that this is up and running, let's take a look at our shiny new instance here. We're going to pop this open. We're going to go to port 4500 like so. And hey, look, there we are, but we're not logged in. Again, we can view the images. We can view shared. We can actually upload to shared. So let's do that real quick. Let's grab another picture just for the sake of it to show that it's actually working. And there we go. Now we can view the image that we just uploaded. So now let's go ahead and get logged in. So first, let's log in as admin just so we can see what that looks like. We're going to click login in the top right. We're going to paste our password in and click login. It says, hi, admin, continue. And hey, look, this looks more or less just like the instance we looked at a moment ago. But now let's take a look at what this looks like logged in as a guest member. So we're going to log out as admin. I grab my guest password. I'm going to paste that in there and hit enter. It says, hi, guest. And hey, look, we don't have nearly as many options over here in the left column where we can view things here and we can upload it to here. So let's grab a different picture. Let's grab this picture and upload to there and say, okay. And let's go to images and just let's see what happens if we try to upload. It says, hey, you don't have right access to this. As a guest, you can't do that because you weren't given those permissions. And I love how simple that was to get set up so that we can have multiple users have different permissions for our file server. So there we go. There is Copy Party. And while again, the aesthetic isn't something that I would choose, it's a great little piece of software. If you ever need a simple, quick, lightweight file server to share some files with some people, definitely check out all of the documentation that will be linked in the video description. I'll also try to remember to have my copy of the Copy Party.conf and the Docker Compose so you can have a bit faster of a time getting this set up for yourself. But I'd love to know what you guys think about it in the comment section down below. Again, I'll have everything linked in the video description. But with that said, I'm going to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for spending a few minutes of your day with me here today, and I'll talk to you in the next video.